So last night at 10:42, about 10:42 p.m., an incident started at I-295 in North Main Street, and I'm going to let Chief Parker give you the details about that incident that ultimately led to a officer-involved shooting. Chief.
Thank you, Sheriff. So good morning. Like Sheriff said, last night about 10:42, one of our sergeants was working an off-duty road construction job at 295 in Main Street. And there was a construction worker standing there in the road helping cars come through the construction area, working through the traffic. And for whatever reason, as the suspect drove through the construction area in his vehicle, he took it upon himself as he got up to the construction worker, he stabbed the construction worker with a knife. At that point, the construction worker ran from that point over to the foreman, flagged him down, told him what was going on. The foreman then yelled over to the officer, to our sergeant, and said, "Hey, that guy just stabbed our worker. Can you get him?" So she pursued after him in her vehicle. She got up behind him, initiated her lights and sirens, and a short pursuit started. There was another sergeant in the area that joined the pursuit, and it was a pretty short pursuit, just a few miles. They ended up over on the 400 block of Duval Station Road where the suspect stopped his vehicle. At that point, the suspect got out of the car. They were giving him commands, get on the ground, let us see your hands. He approached with a knife and then started to charge at Sgt Hoover. She tried to tase him with her issued taser. It was ineffective. And then he actually picked up his pace, was running at her with the knife up in his hand to attack her. Sgt Robinson engaged him, shot him multiple times, and Sgt Hoover transitioned from her taser. She also shot him. The suspect went down there at the scene. When it was safe to do so, they got him secured, and one of the officers that responded did some medical aid on him until rescue responded and picked him up and then took him to a local hospital, where the latest I heard, he is in critical condition at this point. That was our 8th officer-involved shooting of the year. The SAO is also on scene doing their independent investigation. So just to paint the picture for you, this guy, and I'll give you the information in a minute, we've got, as far as his local record, he recently, just this past October, just like a month ago, he pulled up to one of our officers that was working a traffic crash in traffic. He pulled up to him and did the finger thing, and basically he said, "You're a dead man." And the officer said, "What did you say to me?" And he repeated himself, and then he ended up driving off. They got his vehicle tag information, and they did an information report on it. That's why we know who he is. No contact was ever made with him on that. And the other arrest he has locally is a domestic battery back in 2019. So the suspect's name is Benjamin Kubi. Last name is Kubi. Black male, 5'15" of 85. And our 2 involved sergeants, the first is Ralaska Hoover, and it's Ralaska Hoover, Hoover. ID number 67182. She's been with us 16 years. And the second sergeant is Torrie Robinson. It's Torrie Robinson. 62483 is his ID number. He's been with us 15 years. He was originally hired as a corrections officer, and he transitioned over to police back 10 years ago in 2014. So it's both of their first officer-involved shooting with us. So from the time he got out of that car, it was roughly 12 seconds before the whole thing was over. And with that, we can take any questions.
Is there any indication that this person knew the construction worker, or does it just seem random at this point?
No idea at this point. Seems random.
What's the current condition of the victim?
From what I understand, the construction worker is going to be okay.
How many other construction workers were there? Kind of like, can you paint a picture of how many were at this scene when this guy pulled up?
No idea. Just a road construction zone, so I have no idea.
Were any other civilians involved?
No.
When you're dealing with a situation like this is a pretty bizarre situation. What goes into the work to try to make sure other people are safe? And then how are you all dealing with a situation like this where anything could have happened, basically, and it did?
Well, I mean, it's an isolated incident. So he was the suspect that created the threat, and they dealt with it like they're training. I mean, they followed their training to a T, and you know, the suspect has a voice in this, and he's the one that drove this. So obviously, she would have rather just stayed on that construction site. So if he'd have just driven through like he's supposed to, none of this would have happened. So.
Last couple questions. How much longer do you expect this to be an active scene throughout the course of the next?
However long it takes them to process it.
It could be, Aaron. It could be. I don't know. It could be into the early morning hours, because you usually want to make sure you can see completely since it's still dark down there, we have lights, but you want to make sure you can see to clear before you clear it up. But let me paint a little further picture. These officers, she was working an off-duty job. The sergeant was someplace else, and the other sergeant was someplace else. He engages and gets out of his vehicle, stabs a construction worker for no reason. They jump into action as we should. When they get there, from the time that pursuit ends, about 12 seconds, they find themselves in a position where they have to use deadly force on this gentleman and on the suspect, and he was actually chasing her. I mean, she had to actually retreat from him because he was chasing her before he actually went down from the gunshot wound. So it was a pretty scary situation for the officer and for the sergeant and for both of them actually at the scene.
My last question, just for logistics, are you all planning to release like maybe a picture of the knife or the weapon that was used in this situation?
All that'll come out through the PIO.
Yeah, that's usually a part of the process. Mm-hmm. We usually like to put that information out as quickly as we can.
So it's my understanding that this is the third OIS in less than 2 weeks. Are there any department concerns or procedures that you'll be going over to prevent more incidents like this?
No. A lot of these things, and I think you'll see, these things are driven by other people. We're responding to situations that require us to respond. When we respond and someone offers something that's deadly toward a civilian or us, then we're going to take action. And ultimately you're going to lose. So don't do these kind of things. We don't have these issues. But our policies are in place. Our officers are professionals. They do things the right way, 99.99% of the time. And we'll let the state attorney make the decision on this one. But looking at it from what we've seen, they responded the way they should have responded. Anything else?
Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, appreciate it.